I think it's clear they're going to get big players. That's almost not a question at this point. Tennessee, in a lot of ways, sells itself, especially to the kids in state. And talent in the state of Tennessee has really been blowing up, specifically with the growth of the city of Nashville. Nashville has been exploding, and there's a ton of good talent coming out of there right now. And Tennessee's been grabbing a lot of it, even with Butch Jones, and I assume with Pruitt it'll probably be even more. But it's all going to come down to that development now, and how Pruitt can handle that, because Butch just struggled with that so much, and I think forever. If he actually gets back into the head coaching ranks, I think that will forever be his problem, then forever be what holds him back. So if Pruitt can get these guys over that hump, I think, honestly, as of right now, he has a pretty decent roster with Butch's guys. If he can add some nice development to these kids and kind of give them a tool belt to work with that they've been missing, I think you might actually have a decent team come next year. The possibility for winning in year one is right there. But that's going to be probably the biggest thing I'm looking out for, is how he handles these players after they're recruited, because it's clear they're going to recruit good guys.
Yeah, Tennessee high school football talent over the last 15 to 20 years has not ranked with Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, certainly Florida. But as you mentioned, in articles that I've read that has tracked population growth and the upgrade in high school football talent, I think tied directly to that, but some other factors involved, that the upgrade has been significant in recent years. My brother lives in Nashville, so I've heard all the stories about housing prices going through the roof and traffic, and just, they can't build enough houses down there with all the influx. I guess, Charlie, that the next marking point would be this recruiting class. So we've got an early signing period at the end of December. Then we also have the big day the first week of February. And unless Jeremy Pruitt says or does something stupid, he's going to be not off the radar, but there's not going to be anything to judge him by until those classes come in.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't want to try to quell the expectations of Tennessee fans, but I think this recruiting class, really, just with the way that everything transpired and the way that it worked out, it's almost going to be kind of a lost class. You're at, I think the class right now is at number 24 in 247's composite, somewhere right in there. And for me to consider it a quote unquote success relative to the situation, I would say you need to get it up into the top 15, but you lost Cade Mays, who's a Knoxville kid, ultra 5-star, #1 rated offensive lineman in America, who's sitting in your backyard. He's eliminated Tennessee as a choice. It's a possibility that he comes back. As far as I can tell, I think he's gone. But you lost kids like that, and with that, a bunch of other kids exited, and then there was one 4-star yesterday that decommitted. But then Pruitt has drawn the attention of a few other new guys that I think he's going to get a few of. And I don't want this to sound insensitive, but they're sort of like Alabama and Georgia rejects in a way, like kids who are right there on the edge of being an Alabama recruit, but just weren't making the cut. I think you're going to see Pruitt target a bunch of those kids to try to get them in at Tennessee. And I think he'll be able to salvage this class decently well. I can see it. My prediction right now would be it finishes around 17 to 20 right there. Best case scenario would be 15th if he really pulled something out of his hat. But to me, I'm not going to judge him from this recruiting class. It's all going to be about the 2019 class and what he can do with that, because that'll be his first full recruiting cycle, and between him and all of these coaches that are bringing in who are, also supposed to be elite recruiters like himself. That's where I'll really be judging him on the recruiting trail.
I don't think you're going to you're not going to beat Georgia and Alabama recruiting their leftovers long-term in volumes, but there are certainly opportunities there. There are guys excelling all over the nation that were snubbed by certain schools, and the talent evaluator just wasn't, the numbers didn't work out, or the kid matured and grew and became a better player than expected. The development, the system was the right fit, whatever. You can certainly catch a ton of guys that can be impact players that were snubbed by other schools. That can be done. It's done all over the place. Just look at Wisconsin and Michigan State. They've mastered that.
Yep.
But I don't think you compete with those programs doing that in droves and volumes. You have to meet the recruiting standards that they've set to a certain extent. I also think that the recruiting pitch is interesting because you're going to have those guys that are going to say, no, I want to go to the known commodity. I want to make sure that I'm going to a place that's going to compete for conference championships and college football playoff appearances. But there's also, I think, a certain kind of kid that has elite talent that says, I don't want to be just one of the other 5 stars along the offensive line or whatever the unit position. I want to be part of something where I can say I built something. I took something from what was 0-8 in the SEC the year before, and we competed for championships 3 years later. And I think that can be sold.
Absolutely. And I gotta assume that when Jeremy Pruitt goes into these kids' living rooms, that's what he's gonna say. It is basically sell them on the vision of Tennessee rather than, hey, we competed for a national championship last year, so come on over and you could do it too. And I think there's a lot of kids. You're exactly right. I think there's a lot of kids like that because Tennessee has grabbed a lot of them. Kids that really took pride in the fact that their freshman year at Tennessee with Butch Jones, they went 5-7, and then by their junior year, they won 9 games. Like, there's pride in that. Obviously, that's not the expectation of Tennessee. That was good for relative to the situation. That was good after Tennessee had 4 straight losing seasons, and they finally, won a few bowl games. But yeah, there's definitely kids who would embrace that and I like watching more than just the consummate 5 stars. A lot of the times, and I don't want to make a blanket statement here, but a lot of the time in terms of, the observations that I made, those kids just have a better attitude. They're just more approachable, and, that they haven't been told yes to everything their entire life because they haven't always been that superstar. They have a chip on their shoulder. My favorite example, and this will probably be true till the day I stop covering college sports, my favorite example of that's Derek Barnett at Tennessee. Oh my gosh. Kid came in as a 3-star, borderline 4-star by some outlets, and just worked his butt off every single day and was humble and was great with the media and just always kept his head down, never had any kind of high profile anything. Never was a problem off the field, and I mean it's just paying off. And he's not a starter in the NFL, but he's definitely gonna be. I mean, he's collected, I think, 4 sacks on the season for the Eagles. He's just killing it, and I love seeing that kind of story. And I would be more than happy to see Pruitt build this team on the shoulders of guys like that. But it's tough to evaluate guys that kind of come from that way. I would say Dan Mullen at Mississippi State has kind of built that program around kids like that. I don't think Tennessee probably won't have to dip as low ratings-wise as Dan Mullen did at State, but I think absolutely there's a way to succeed that way. But yeah, eventually you got to get those blue chips. You got to get in the dudes who are at the very top of that talent scale. And I think eventually, if Jeremy Pruitt handles this thing right, that's going to happen.
And I got to think, Charlie, this is a complete guess, but if you're grabbing the lone 4-star from the state of Colorado or Wyoming, maybe there's not a chip on that kid's shoulder because he was the best in the state or one of the 5 or 10 best or whatever. But in a football playing state or crazy area, for the guy that was competing against all the 5 stars and playing just as well, and his performance on the field was just as good, but he got snubbed because a 40 time wasn't quite right, or he didn't have the right build, or he was only 5'11", or whatever the situation, that kid may have that motivation chip because he played with those kids and thinks, just like being snubbed at the NFL draft, I did it against them just because of some kind of measurement. I'm being downgraded, so I'm going to go prove myself.
Yeah, I think it's not a coincidence that you see a lot of really good players come out of IMG Academy in Florida, because IMG Academy is literally the school that builds college athlete recruits. That's kind of their whole aim, and it's a interesting thing. But I think kids get down there in high school, and yeah, instead of being the star at their school in like Seymour, Tennessee, they're around a whole bunch of other top-notch athletes, always competing and always having from high school age having to compete for that top spot and always kind of being driven. And yeah, and that's why it's not a coincidence that you get a lot of good kids out of there, because they're during a very formative period of their life, they're having to compete rather than having their butt kissed, And so I think that's huge. And honestly, I just hate seeing stuff like this kid. This literally happened today. This kid, he's the #1 JUCO tight end in America. And on Twitter, he put, "If Tennessee fans get me 20,000 followers by December 20th, I'll sign with Tennessee." He said that on Twitter. And, I saw that and I was like, that's really interesting. I wonder if he'll actually like follow through with it if Tennessee fans do it. I mean, on one level, I want to know that. But then I look at him like, you're extorting a fan base for social media follows. And like, why would these other players want to play with you, like that are already at Tennessee, if that's why you came? Because you got Twitter followers. Like there's the one side of recruiting that can produce really great, hardworking kids and things like that. And then there's this other side that creates these kind of entitled, these kids that are just in it for the exposure, and they love that people are telling them how great they are. And it's a beast that I don't really like grappling with all that much. I
try not to evaluate the mindset or the actions of an 18-year-old versus a 40-year-old, because that's ridiculous. You can't do that. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to say stupid things, do stupid things. But if somebody is truly making their college choice and evaluating not the head coach, the position coach, the university, the location, the school, of course, the football program and everything that's involved, but you get me 20,000 Twitter followers, I'm there, regardless of whether that's a good fit for me.
It's completely absurd, and it's why I mean, genuinely, I try to like stay away from any kind of in-depth analysis of recruiting, as much as that's inevitably a decent chunk of my job, just covering Tennessee. It's so strange because like I don't think I could never be a recruiting analyst, because I'm at a base level, I don't want to be calling 18-year-old kids, 17, 18-year-old kids all day and be like, hey, what are you thinking about college? Like, that's just so weird. And then on top of that, just always, I mean, it all comes back to the fact that they're kids just falling around these like 16 to 18-year-old kids and like watching everything that they do. And everything that creates, just kind of the attitude that it creates in the kids, and the attitude that it creates in a fan base where you get fans that feel like they need to like tweet at recruits and create like artwork for them, like fan art that they make for these kids. Like I'm not a big fan of what college recruiting has become, but look, it's a necessary evil in what it is. And the only thing that I wish would go away is like media companies that are exasperating all of it just to make money. Like you're creating a monster here. Like Bleacher Report made a video maybe a couple of years ago with a kid who committed to Florida State. They paid for a Lamborghini rental, covered in like Florida State stuff, and had the kid drive the Lamborghini and then get out of it and be like, I'm committed to Florida State. Like, what? This kid hasn't done anything. He's in high school. Like, even if you want a state championship, that's fun. But like, why are you doing this to this kid? And like, just setting him up to fail. Like, if he's going to feel so stupid that he did that if his college career doesn't end up awesome. And it's things like that I just wish, can we not do that and exasperate this problem? But otherwise, like I said, recruiting just kind of is what it is.
That story's so bizarre in so many directions. I can't even comment. I'm either speechless or I would be talking for the next 50 minutes about all the various ways in which that's just wrong and just weird and bizarre. From the college football standpoint, obviously I love it. I love everything about it. I love the play on the field, the competition, the pageantry, the prestige. I love the history, the traditions. I love everything about college football, the freakish athletes out there. I love the kids that develop and come up. I love everything about college football except the playoff system, but even more so, 1,000 times more, just like you, recruiting. That's why I bring a ton of guys like you on to tell me about recruiting and rate the classes and to talk about the classes, because I just can't get too involved in it. It's just tell me who you finally signed on signing day, but all the rumors and conjecture and all that business, I just can't dive into it.
I'm the same exact way. That's why I just, I let 247 do whatever they're going to do, or, the guys are rivals or whatever. And I just I run this website, Orange and White Report, and we don't really do recruiting. And that is a conscious choice on my part. Obviously, when Tennessee gets recruiting commits, I write it up. But I don't have a recruiting like hot board and who Tennessee is interested in or anything like that. Cause that ain't for me, and it never will be. And, if that ends up, having me not be, have this job work out, then so be it. I don't want to be in that world.
That's great. Charlie Burris, Orange and White Report. I'm on there on a regular basis trying to keep track of Tennessee football as I'm trying to cover the nation. But for Tennessee football, as Charlie mentions, outside of recruiting, I dive in there and get the perspective of the Vols right there. For me, if you love college football, what can I say? I talk to guys like Charlie all over the place covering the top teams and programs in the nation. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Charlie, appreciate the time and the breakdown.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you having me on. It's always fun, Mark.